is a possible space war using holographic technology. And, with the winners, of course, being the heroes, and then they introduce us to our new masters, the Anunnaki, or whoever it is that they've got in under wraps. Is there anything in the language that comes around 2010, 2011 that would support...
Unfortunately, I have to agree that you could read a lot of the stuff that's in our Alien Wars subset of the Space Goat Farts entity. You could read it that way. It could be taken as support. Now, bear in mind that when we get down to the detail level of the aspect and attribute sets, we're at a level where there might be 20,000 such opportunities for me to choose, and so I might choose some that are highly attractive to, my personal predisposition towards space aliens, and miss others that, would be more bland to me.
Yeah. Interesting.
But you are correct. We do have some information that under the Alien War subset that would support a scenario that way. Could also be interpreted many other ways, but it certainly is one.
That's one of the ways it could be, yeah.
Yeah, and I would also suppose, by the way, that if they were to go and do that kind of thing, since we see how sophisticated they are in doing chemtrails, probably the holograms wouldn't be necessary. They probably have, some kind of devices that they could actually go up and, shoot at each other for a while. Right,
exactly. Yeah, I bet they have triangles and all kinds of devices that look just like, they come from other places and probably were back engineered.
Yeah, exactly so. Yeah, and I personally have seen something like that in 1972, which was, a giant floaty thing that was silent, blocked out, a considerable area, maybe a mile of the sky in the northwest before chemtrails, and, went zipping off with no sound and scares the blood. His blood tries to crawl right out of your feet. Yeah.
Very good. Well, we know with regards to food shortages that Monsanto and several other corporations and individuals have set up a food bank, the seed bank, not the food
the Doomsday Vault.
Doomsday Vault. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Yeah, and you notice how high up in the latitudes they set it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very interesting, especially given that Monsanto has done everything in their power to destroy the natural cycles of plants and growing with the killer seeds and so on and so forth. And
by the way, that's also part of the continuing food crisis currently hitting India, which is so bad that India is having, as a nation, is having to repeal tax structures to try and encourage food imports. Mm-hmm. And it's a side effect of some of the GM crop issues of a couple of years back, yeah.
Yeah, doesn't the World Bank kind of loan them money and then they force the country to...
Evil little structure, yeah. The World Bank and the BIS. Well, all these people have, karmic debts that they'll have to live out.
I sure hope so.
Well, we can be quite certain of that. I mean, I take that as a basic tenet of how a universe operates. Yeah. And the more scary nastiness you inflict, the more you're going to have to get retribution back. It's a zero-sum game, I think.
I think so too. But so far we're still living under the appearance or the illusion of that all being successful, and I think that
but there's people take karma very simplistically. If you look at it from the sophisticated view of the Jain or some of the pre-Vedic Hindu descriptions, karma is actually a physical property. It's a superfine level of matter that is beyond our ability to perceive directly. Okay, and if you look at the world as the universe is composed of energetic pulses that are colliding with each other and provide the illusion of the solidity because they're happening so fast. 22 trillion times a second, they're smashing into each other, and our brains work at maybe 30 frames a second. So for us, this is like solid stuff, right?
Right.
Okay, so if you look at it that way, karma is between this 30 frames a second level of perception and the 22 trillion times a second impact. And now here's another side issue to it. There's this really brilliant fellow now deceased by the name of Ian Lungold, I think. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
He did all kinds of stuff about the Mayan consciousness and all this kind of stuff. He's like Kalaman. He has a different interpretation. He's really a smart fellow. But one of his enduring contributions to humans is this very short article he wrote that you can find online called The Game of Loss and Lack. And what he does is he describes a situation that tells you basically how karma works relative to this kind of stuff. In other words, why do bad guys prosper? Well, here's the deal. In universe, consciousness at one particular level is agnostic. It doesn't care good or bad. What it cares is an issue of what they call ethical risk. The more you put yourself out there as a subset of consciousness within this particular view of the game of loss and lack, the more you're generating, quote, excitement for other parts of consciousness to come your way, and it starts this like feedback loop. So the more you are bad, but do it in a particular mental mindset, the more your badness is accepted by universe, so to speak, and quote, rewarded, at least in the short run. Okay, ultimately we know, you can only take that so far before everybody gets, in terms of the consciousness that's coming and accreting to you, gets really bored with this same old repetition thing. And Ian Lengold's article goes to the point that really the way to approach this whole game of loss and lack is through the concept of taking ethical risk, which really puts you out there against your own better interests, but doing it for a positive viewpoint, and here's how you can gauge success and that this is all actually working for you. So, to a certain extent, this is a very good description of the karmic process that goes on at that particular level, and we're seeing that play out now. You'll note that the strain of all of of that particular personality in that particular role was such that George Bush, once he was out, boy, he just dropped from sight. He's just nowhere to be seen. And he's like sort of decompressing from all of this because of that level of personal exposure and that accretion of vast quantities of karma. Now, in the Hindi and the Jain understanding of karma, which makes sense in an energetic view of the world, your consciousness becomes heavy, if you will, with these accumulated karmic particles that you have to shed, and they're at that level between 30 frames a second and 22 trillion times a second at which matter is actually created. And there you have to go through some particular levels of process to get clean of them, and that's sort of the basic point of it all.
Well, that makes total sense to me. In fact, I was just writing a blog entry about it, that very subject. So except you said it much better than I did. I might go back and revise my little piece.
Well, before you do it, go and read Ian's article, because he said it far better than I could. He was very eloquent about it.
Yes, I just stumbled across a different article by him, and it was excellent. Now, and there's another weird event that I've heard you mention in the past, and that is in 2010, it appears that certain people literally walk into another dimension. And I think you mentioned Dick Cheney as one of those people.
No. If I did, it was just merely in passing and jokingly as a potential candidate in my view, right?
Oh.
No. We don't do personalities, especially political personalities, for a lot of different reasons.
So I'm just imagining things.
You're wishful thinking, perhaps, yes.
Yeah, well, of course.
Yeah.
But did you mention anywhere in the web? I mean, does it mention anywhere in the Webbots that there will be some kind of disappearance of people?
This is a continuing meme, and we expect a flush of it, so to speak. But again, it'll be occurring in the period in which there will be a great deal of chaos. So it'll be perhaps difficult to determine exactly what's going on at any given point. With any level of surety from, say, the end of February onward, in the sense that even the independent media might be breaking down. We just don't know what the issues are going to be relative to even Internet coverage as the economic problems become much worse over winter. Then as I say, there's the push towards a different expression of the revolutionary meme here in the U.S., which may reach up to the point of a general strike, may bring a strike against the IRS. I have no way of knowing, but it's going to be relatively massive over late spring and into summer. During that period of time, there is indeed this whole continuing disappearances sort of thing. I'm hoping it's not like the dirty war in Argentina where 30,000 innocent people were disappeared by the government. It appears that it's rather the other way, that fractional infighting, as well as actual enemy is rising up out of the giant crowd of the populace, will indeed pressure the powers that be to the point where they'll get real paranoid and start walking around with lots of bodyguards. And I'm talking to the point where you see them in public, it'll be noticeable that they're surrounded by, a dozen individuals, that sort of thing.
Wow. Now, I heard another rumor on the Internet that the World Bank was going bust, that they were getting broke. Now, is that even possible?
Sure. Actually, it's probable. It's predetermined. It must occur. And that's because the World Bank is really a creature of our Congress. It's not a World Bank, just as the Federal Reserve Bank is not part of the federal government, has no reserves, and is not really a bank.
Right.
So you have to understand, the Department of Defense wages war. It does not defend against anything. The Department of Education does not do anything other than school. It does not educate.
Right.
The government's primary function is to lie to you. The media's total function is to support the establishment no matter what. So they repeat the lies.